Bros Play!
Alright, hey, it's Messenger. Never played this before. Totally blind. See, look at that.
Yeah, look, fresh, new
Completely
game.
blind.
Empty.
Don't go back and look. I promise you, we're OP.
Yeah. Oh, we're definitely OP.
I forgot about the little
dude.
fuck.
The little dude, the little devil man.
Yeah. You know, it's weird. YouTube just announced that swearing in the first minute demonetizes you. And
Really?
And I was like, wasn't that already true?
I thought it was, but I honestly thought you were going to say swearing in the first degree. I don't know why. I was like, YouTube has defined their own laws here.
That sounds like a parody of a Rage Against the Machine song.
Swearing in the first degree. That does sound like something they would put out there.
Like how the Grumps did filling in the name of.
Filling in the name of?
Yeah, he's the long Tetris piece.
Oh my god, seriously?
Yeah. I'm the long piece. It's beautiful.
Oh, I can see that. It was, so wait, was it like a Star Bomb song?
Yep.
Okay.
Back in the game and I have changed. It's a fucking great song. It's one of my favorites.
Filling in the name of, oh man.
And then of course he gets to the part where it's like everybody only wants him because he is such a great piece to fill things in. And they're like, oh, hey, welcome to the party, long piece. We've got this fucking empty spot we'd like you to fill. And then at one point he's just like, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me.
What if I don't want Tetrises? What if Tetrises are important to you, bitch?
Yeah. And then of course his mom calls him and he's like, oh, good, she'll help me. Hey, mom. And she's like, yeah, anyway, when you want to come over and fill in this fucking empty gap for me, that'd be great.
Everybody wants a piece of the long piece.
I don't know enough Let's Players, but most of the time they just ingratiate themselves in the story, and they do the voices and they get all improv-y on it, and we just blast through it because it's gameplay, bros.
Well, and this is how you and I used to play games.
Yeah.
Like when we were kids, we would occasionally watch cinematics, but it was usually like the second or third time we played a game.
Oh yeah.
Typically we were like, okay, let me control the character. Let me control the character. Like
yes.
I want to slash people.
Let me play.
Let me play.
I want to go to the autumn hills.
Yeah, that's one way to say it.
You know what's weird is English.
Just as a blanket statement.
Yeah.
You know what's fucked up, man? English.
Yeah.
Why?
All of it. Even some of it's not even English. It's like it's like French or Spanish or Latin.
Yeah. We always say like, oh, it has Latin roots, and it's like, no, you didn't even change the word, bitch. It's just a Latin word.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually count as having roots if you stole it.
And then you got like, you got words that aren't even, like they have like an X in them or something, and it's like, what part of the English rules that you taught me in school does this word like fit?
Well, in certain strange stuff, like, what the hell's the point in a letter, Q, that only is followed by another specific letter, U? Like, why not just have a KW? Makes the same sound, right? Qua. Like, queen could be KWEE. Like,
right.
There's no reason you couldn't, but we're like, no. We like this Q letter because it's surprisingly similar to an O.
Well, also, what government fucking, like, hidden entity character came up with silent letters? Like, what the fuck are they doing in there? What are they for?
I know.
What is the fucking N doing at the end of damn? You know? Like, what's the second D in Todd doing there? Was the first one not good enough? Did it not make the sound strong enough? You just need another?
It's short form for tottered, so...
Oh,
that makes sense.
Yeah, sorry, I'm the asshole here.
One of the best, I guess, analogies for English that I've ever heard is English is a language that beats up other language in dark alleys and rifles through their pockets for spare grammar.
Yeah,
and it's just good. So well.
It just takes your lunch grammar.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. We just have all of these. Oh my god, we're samplers.
Wow.
We're samplers. We just take pieces from other things and we're like, you know what, I like this, it's mine.
Well, I do find that we also get a little too down on ourselves. Like, the self-deprecation of Westerners is pretty extraordinary. And we love to act like we're the only ones that do things like racism or theft.
Yeah, you're talking about white guilt, I assume.
I've never heard of that, but
that's a foreign concept.
yeah, it's just like we just take and we just steal from other people, and we're racist. And it's like, you been to Japan?
Well, yeah.
You ever see them do a blackface thing in 2023?
You know who doesn't steal from people? Civilizations that fall.
No.
Like, quite frankly, that's how that works.
Classic white conqueror way of responding to that question.
Hell yeah, man. Well, someone got really mad at this one chick who was saying, like, he was trying to say, you do know that, like, conquerors and kings and, you know, these people typically don't have one woman, right? They typically have, like, a bunch of concubines. Think about the Chinese emperor has 100 mistresses, right? And then, they said, like, so before he gave her any examples, she's like, well, no, that's just, like, you know, a white invention. And he's like, excuse me? Like, you seriously think that the Middle East and Africa and, like, all these places, you really think that the men don't have multiple women? Like, where have you been living?
Yeah.
Right?
Under a rock.
Oh, I thought you said, like, under Iraq.
Oh, I mean,
a rock.
We're probably south of the, like, relative to the equator, we're probably south of Iraq, right?
That's a good question. We might be
somewhere in the middle.
We might be.
That's actually how you should give somebody a hard time about that. If they, like, bring up, you know, Afghanistan or something like that, just be like, where is it? Like, show me on a map.
Yeah, until you tell me that.
Show me on a map.
Shit.
I bet you don't. And next time someone brings up a war, ask them about Yemen.
Yeah,
they won't know about it.
It's a good
and
point.
It's totally fucked what's happening there. And it's not the right victims, so it's not in the news. Like, they're like, to the news, they are suspiciously non-white for the news.
Well, it also seems kind of weird that, like, the idea is, oh, well, you know, we only have so much time to cover certain things. And it's like, yeah, but you beat a dead horse every day.
Motherfucker, you've got CP24 that repeats the same 5 stories all day. And yet, you ain't doing podcasts because you have no substance.
Well, can we definitely just comment on the fact that CP24 is the most anxiety-inducing way to present news?
It's
so you've got some chick in the middle presenting news old-fashioned way, and then you've got a ticker on the bottom and a ticker on the side showing news in just like this rotating chyron. That's way too much information. That's just too much.
CP24 is on at the in-laws' house.
Oh, okay.
And so I love it for like 10 minutes. I love to just see how the other half live. And
it's like watching a movie from the 30s. It's just interesting.
Yes. It's like watching a movie where the hero also bats around the woman that he gets.
Oh, God, yeah.
From like the 40s, and you're like, whoa. You guys talk about the good old days. I can see why you thought they were good. It's like, yeah, back then we just did what the fuck we wanted. Like, we didn't really worry about it.
Man, that looked really real.
I saw one the other day where I'm pretty sure it was John Wayne. I forget what it was, but it was a Western. And the idea is that when she rejects him, he just drags her around town and embarrasses her, like humiliates her. And the audience and the people in the show were down for it.
So strange.
Yeah, he's like batting her around, and the idea is this is what you get for rejecting the guy that saved you. That's the idea of the thing.
Which is like kind of an interesting notion, but that's also highly fucked up.
What I realized recently is that when I was a kid, I was actually woke before wokeness had a word. And then as wokeness started to gain traction,
you grew out of it.
I grew the completely wrong way. In fact, they taught me what's wrong with it. Because I had all these ideas when I was a kid of being like, that's kind of offensive. Like, what about the person that did that? Like, what about the person who actually lived that experience? Isn't that kind of rude? But I never wanted anyone to do anything about it. I just wanted to say it. I didn't want you to go out and be like, okay, from now on, you're not allowed to pretend to be anything in acting unless you are that thing.
Like, we're gonna go after your livelihood
we'll
because
ignore,
you made a bad joke.
Completely ignore the fact that acting is about pretending to be something you aren't to capture an idea that is real.
The one thing I do kind of like, though, about, like, quote-unquote, the good old days, is, you know, in an equal opportunity sense, the directors used to get away with a lot more shit. So I was listening to an interview. Hey, go down to the left, bitch. See that?
It's pronounced Mitch.
Well, not anymore. We were watching an interview with the director of The Shining. And so he had, like, some scenes in the movie that were pretty aggressive. Like, there was one scene where John Voight had to climb these rocks, and he fell and almost smashed his head on the rocks on the way down. And someone asked him midway through filming, why are you filming this whole movie in chronological order? Like, in the order the movie's going to be played in. And he said, that way, if one of you drowns, I can write it into the film.
Oh my god. Also, if you've heard John Voight speak recently, you would think he was hit in the head.
He's a strange cat.
Man's calling for civil war.
Really?
Have you not heard that?
Not in those terms, no.
He said if it comes down to it, we will have to fight for our freedom. Like, whatever it takes.
Jeez. Well, I mean, I think... Doesn't he live in Texas?
I don't know, but everything's bigger there. So,
well, it's just easier to hold that position
if you're a dickhead,
in Texas.
your dickhead is also bigger in Texas.
Everything is bigger there.
It's so funny. I wonder if I got that. Did it save or no? I probably have to do it again. Eh?
But I also think there was I could be wrong, but you can't attack down, can you?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's
lame.
It's funny how Joe thought that he would get smaller when he went to. He's like, I was hoping to become less famous.
What?
And it's like, everything's bigger in Texas, Joe.
What a fool.
Obviously, the podcast would become bigger when you go there.
He didn't mean that. There's no way he actually thought he would become less famous when he left LA.
Well, a combination of LA and going to Spotify. He was hoping that it would
cool things off.
Well, he was hoping for like a 10 to 20% reduction in fame.
But instead, he massively boosted it.
Well, he had no idea someone was waiting in the shadows to try to cancel him for being just like a measured human being. The whole thing with the media is that you have to be divided into one of two camps.
I guess, yeah.
You can't agree with abortion and gun rights. You have to be all into one side, and otherwise you're a traitor.
Nice.
And it's not. It is the opposite of when you meet Tom Cruise, where it's a pleasure. What does he say? It's an honor and a pleasure.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's the opposite. It's dishonorable, and it is not pleasurable at all to have met you.
Yeah, and I just can't even imagine like doing the Hollywood thing. Just in general, you know, I can't even imagine working in government. My God, like just the sheer waste and the red tape and just the headaches and.
When it's not for innovation.
No, in fact, its job technically is to stifle innovation to a degree.
Well, they want to keep things how they are, right? You can't lose jobs. So if you're going to tell me that something is bad and it affects the jobs, I'm going to tell you that it's not bad.
See, that's kind of funny because like that is definitely how the conservatives behave, 100%. The liberals, not so much, and I'm just talking like liberal conservative general, not, you know, specific parties. But one thing that is kind of strange is just the way that, you know, people are always worried about jobs going away. But what I don't understand is if I can do something with less staff, shouldn't I? Like, what the hell is the point in saying, like, no, everyone who currently has a job should always have a job for all of time. Even if you find a better way, they should still get paid. And it's like, yeah, but then we would still have 50 dudes running a steam shovel when I wanted to make a tunnel, right? Like, that's what happens when you're like, no, we can't get rid of any of the jobs.
Yeah.
So it's a catch-22.
My favorite is the Archer joke about when they hear gunshots, and Mallory, of course, is like, you know, old school. So she's like, it's probably just the Mexicans shooting up all the jobs.
Oh my God.
It's like, it's so absurd that she just I don't like this guy, by the way. Like, what is he doing?
Okay, so you gotta slash him, then he throws
the slashing I didn't know that it provoked that.
It does,
oh,
yeah. I
see.
just figured that out because he was kind of hobnobbing you for a little bit.
There is no one on the planet who's allowed to say hobnob in front of me. I'm just gonna reset this.
What's wrong with hobnobbing?
Which reminds me, every time these conversations happen. Every time there's like a thing that people don't agree with, they want to burn it all down. And I'm like, stop! It didn't get here because we burned it down every time we disagreed with it.
It's just one of those sort of like, oh, there's poison ivy in the forest, so let's just burn the whole thing to the ground, instead of trying to control the poison ivy.
Well, the other day at work, someone left a door unlocked, and the response was, let's just not leave that door unlocked. And I was like, or we could check all the doors when we're done, because it's like a normal security thing.
Well, yeah, that's what I don't understand. I've actually gotten kind of irritated with people on this, too. Like, there's some people that at the end of the day, they will get up, they will leave their computer logged in, and then they will just leave the building, and that's it. And I'm like, okay, so first of all, your computer's logged in, so if I wanted to go and fuck with your email, I could. And then second of all, your computer's just sitting there in full view of the public, right? So if someone's like, which building do I break into? I'm going to break into the one where I can see all the fucking laptops.
Yep.
But nobody seems to care about security. We live in a safe community. We don't have to worry about people stealing from us.
Yeah, that's the funniest thing. People don't usually steal from the community they live in. They usually go to another one.
Well, until 2020.
And they case the joint.
When 2020 hit, everyone was like, let's pilfer our own communities. That sounds like a good plan. Oh, shit.
Oh, that's very clever. Yeah, we had a problem where people kept cutting into the bottom of our work vehicles.
Stealing your cat.
Stealing the old... I always thought it was called a catalytic, or a Cadillac converter. But it's actually catalytic.
Yes.
Because it creates a catalyst, right? It is the catalyst.
Yes, exactly.
So they have like rare metals in them. So they're really valuable to just scoop it out. It's like the liver of the
That's
of a work
such a
vehicle.
good way to put it. It's the liver of a car. Yeah.
Because like wolves and wolves and killer whales and all sorts of carnivore creatures will just scoop the liver out if they don't have time to consume the whole animal, because it's just packed with stuff, right?
Well, it's so packed with nutrients. There was actually a prehistoric woman that they discovered the bones of, or the corpse of. She'd been frozen, and they're like 99% sure she died from a vitamin A overdose.
Whoa.
From eating liver.
That's wicked.
Yeah. So I didn't even realize, I guess I know you can overdose on anything. It seems weird to overdose on vitamins, right? Like, just the concept of that seems a little strange.
Yeah, if you ate too much rabbit, I think it's like a protein overdose you would have.
Actually, it's the other way around. So when you eat only rabbit, because you're not getting any fat, your system eventually just shuts down.
Oh.
So they call it rabbit fever.
Yeah,
so it's not about eating rabbit, it's about not eating other things.
But anyway, the point of bringing up the work vehicle thing was that it was like we talked about it forever about putting a fence up, and finally did it, and it was like the next day they just cut the fence.
Yeah, I can see where this is going.
Because the Sawzall...
It's not Fort Knox.
...is gonna... It was a good fence, though. Like, it was a solid-ass fence. I was like, yeah, we did something.
Oh, my God.
And it was like it wasn't even there, because if you're out there sawing into the metal underbelly of a vehicle, sawing the fence ain't shit. Like, it's just another... Yeah, it was like if you were on your way to beat up a small child, and then another small child got in your way, and you were like, okay...
Yeah, slow you down for all of 1 second.
And you, like, used the first child to
beat up the second one? I mean, hey, a club is a club.
Yeah. When is a spade not a spade? When it's a child.
Whoa, buddy. Yeah, I do think that's always kind of... If you want actual protection against stuff like that, like, you really need to be more into... I mean, it's tough even with cameras. Like, what are you really going to capture on there, right? That's going to, like, materially make a difference.
Yeah.
But even, I think that's actually one thing that bothered me about, like, the 2020 to 2022 era was just fucking everyone's wearing a mask. And you're supposed to. You're supposed to walk around with your face obscured. And I'm just thinking, that's not good. It's not good for anybody.
Oh, and the development of small children.
Well, that too. And their speech development. Yeah, it's a huge factor.
I've been to people's homes where it's clear that this 2-year-old child has never seen someone except for their family. I'm the first human being that isn't related to them that they're seeing. And the look on their face is like, it's like black people seeing white people for the first time.
When you want to know what actually makes it even scarier is the idea that, okay, so there's all these people, have never seen anybody. So where do you think they're getting most of their ideas about the world?
Yeah.
TikTok.
Oh, no. I thought you were about to say
That's
their
where-
parents. That's so much worse.
Well, exactly. Like, sure, yeah, their parents probably not the greatest if they're not, exposing their children to people, but...
I don't let my kids
TikTok.
play violent video games. I let Chinese spyware inform them about the world.
It's hard for me because I never got any of the social medias. Like, if I have a business, then it makes sense why I'd be on Facebook or whatever, right? If you're trying to grow your channel, if you're trying to, like, get out there in the personal fitness world or whatever, even to a degree, keeping up with some family that you're, like, far away from. But I've never gotten it. So when TikTok came out, I was like, wait, we're now upgrading to an even worse social media?
Yeah. And it's crazy that it took that. Like, no one... Vine died, and then everyone was like, well...
That's it.
There will never be a short video content service again.
Actually.
No development required. That's why when people say things like, I'm too late to the world to innovate, or like everything's been invented. It's like, yeah,
That is the dumbest thing.
everything that stupid people have invented.
Yeah, well, that is that expression, right? Like, oh, you grew up too late to explore the world and too early to explore space. And it's like, first of all, we're not too early to explore space because that shit's coming along fast.
And also the world is like, we know more about the space around us than the ocean inside.
Well, and that's the exact thing. You know what we've discovered is like the easily accessible open flat plains of the earth. That's it.
Yeah.
We don't know what the hell's in the Congo. We don't know what's at the bottom of the ocean. Like, there's still a lot of questions left. But one thing I've started to notice that actually affects like my day-to-day is I can't look at the constellations anymore.
Because of light pollution?
No, because of Starlink. Starlink
Oh.
has become so prevalent in our area that even on a night where you can't see any stars, you'll see at least 3 Starlink satellites. So then when you can see the stars, there's going to be a couple of like extremely bright objects in the sky that are actually satellites.
I didn't know about this Starlink thing that you could see it from.
Yeah, you should have a look. Most of them are to the south of us just because we're to the north of civilization. So just, yeah, look towards the southern horizon and you'll see at least 1 or 2, and they're noticeably brighter than a star because they're so close. And like they actually, you know that kind of gleam that a star gets where there's like little bars extending in every direction?
Yes.
It's like, it's more intense because it's so close. So it actually almost looks like it has wings.
Wow.
Like little thin wings, yeah. I remember the first time I was pointing them out in the sky, and my wife is just like, I think you're just high. I'm like, no, there's definitely something up there, and it's definitely moving. And we were sitting out there for like 20 minutes, and I'm like, no, look, it's gotten closer to those trees.
By the
So,
way,
new thing.
congratulations on not slipping up, because I was going to correct you. I'm like, I bet he's going to say girlfriend.
Actually, a coworker had to correct me the other day.
And congratulations on being married.
Thanks, brother.
You fuck.
I appreciate
Way
that.
to perpetuate the patriarchy.
Yeah, heteronormative stereotypes and all that.
I can't even believe that the two of you stood up there in classic garb. Like, way to hold her down with a wedding dress.
Oh,
My
yeah.
goodness, you couldn't...
Because I wanted her to be in the wedding
You
dress.
ruined every photograph because she's clearly so unhappy to be in a wedding gown. You held her back.
That was me. I chose the sparkly dress. That 100% driven by the patriarchy.
Yeah. Definitely not like a thing that... Oh, I bet you're going to do that.
Yeah,
I bet you're going to do that. I was just thinking, can we just upload this as a podcast? I don't see why not.
Yeah, like just without the video.
Like, I don't think Tim Curry would get in the way. Like, he wouldn't be like, excuse me.
This is not a podcast.
Oh, come on, man. I thought that was a way to go.
It did kind of look like it. What was the point in this room?
Anyway, because I it doesn't bother me anymore when people on the podcasts talk about something that's visual. Like I just don't care as long as you're doing it justice.
And verbally describing things that would be missed otherwise.
Yeah, like there was a point where it would be fairly common for Joe to just be like, "Oh, look at that! Look at that! Oh my God, look at that!" And they would be kind of rough to just listen to.
Right.
But I've found recently, like I'm never wondering what it looks like because they're good enough now at explaining just being like, "Oh man, like that bear is like 12 feet tall," and then I can in my head I'm like, "Wow, a 12-foot bear would be pretty fucking huge."
Yeah, like you can see the way he's looking at the guy, and like the guy's trying to poke him with a stick or whatever.
Have you ever seen a short-faced bear?
Yeah, I mean like depictions of them.
Well, yeah, not a real one. They're not around anymore. But the theory is that it held humans back from crossing the Bering Land Bridge for like 1,000 years.
Which is crazy
because
when you consider all the other creatures we've overcome.
It's like a thing from it's like a dire bear, basically. It's just its arms are super long. It's massive when it stands on its hind legs. It's like impossibly big.
A dire bear, that's a good way to describe it.
Yeah. Spooky shit.
Yeah, it's actually really crazy to think about some of the creatures that once existed and even coexisted with humans.
Like, I wasn't quick enough on it.
What do you had?
It was gonna be a joke about like, you know, like a person that is also an animal.
Oh.
Like Foxkin. Oh, that would have been a good joke.
Oh gosh, yeah. That's I actually think one of the more problematic. I hate using that word, but problematic things we're gonna deal with is the otherkin. Because like, it's one thing to, you know, be a person who's divergent in the way that you're a person. It's another thing to not be a person altogether. That's actually another step.
Can I offer you a theory, though?
Go for it.
You remember how Trey Parker and Matt Stone, creators of South Park, would put jokes into like offensive jokes that were bad enough that the studio would say, "Don't put these in there," to distract them from the jokes they wanted to get in there?
Yeah.
It's quite possible that this, like, 52 types of sexualities is just about getting us to accept the 3 or 4 that they actually want. It's a political thing. You throw a bunch of shit in there, and then people are like, "No, I'm vetoing this." And you're like, "Okay, fine, but you can at least accept my first offer."
That is interesting, because there might be a negotiation angle there. The problem is it alienates so many people that I feel like it cuts your negotiation power.
The other part of that, if I can also offer a theory on that as well.
Nah, I don't want that one.
Nah, that's enough of your theories, motherfucker. I think every single group of human beings has detractors in their groups who like to spread nonsense and like to actually work against the group's interests while pretending to be part of the group.
Right.
So like a guy that goes with someone, or like someone who's in a Black Lives Matter protest who brings a Molotov cocktail.
Right.
They're not there to raise awareness for their issue. They're there to fuck shit up, and they either don't care about how it affects the movement, or some of them may be potentially doing it on purpose.
Yeah, like the idea is that they see this as an opportunity to either exploit the movement or even work against the movement.
There's never been a crisis that wasn't an opportunity for someone.
Yeah, what is never let a good crisis go to waste?
Yes.
Isn't that the expression?
And there's also the other one that the Japanese word for opportunity is also crisis or something like that. Which who fucking knows if that's true? I heard a great quote the other day from H Bomber Guy where he said, like, why would a person lie about a thing that could easily be checked out? And it turns out that the easier it is to check it out, the less people go and check it out.
The less likely, yeah.
Yeah, like the people believe that you will tell small lies, but couldn't possibly believe you would tell a big one because they wouldn't.
Yeah, and that was Himmler's theory.
Was it?
Yeah. Yeah, Hitler's main propagandist, Himmler, stated that people only tell small lies themselves. So in their mind, small lies are the only things that people are gonna tell. So when the big lie is told, because they don't tell them themselves, they don't assume anyone else would either.
Wow. It's really interesting. Human psychology is crazy. It's kind of like everyone knows what stuff looks like, but no one knows how to draw it.
Yeah.
Everyone knows
Especially
what humans
me.
are like, but very few people know how to manipulate them. It's like, how can you say you know what something looks like if you can't draw it?
I will say there's
Right?
probably more people that know how to manipulate humans than know how to draw one.
Yeah.
Because one of those is an actual talent, and the other one is just kind of... Like, I do think we have instincts for manipulating each other. Because
Totally.
there's a fine line between manipulation and just normal human behavior, right?
Especially women, because most of their history has not been in control of their own destiny.
Right.
And so the really smart ones have figured out that all I need is easy, manipulative, powerful man. And that's not their fault. They were in. That's the scenario. That was the hand they were dealt. They're just playing it.
Well, and there's no other way for it to have worked, because our species was created on this paradigm of a protector and a nurturer. And so the nurturer has to have skills to protect themselves. And those skills can't involve bashing people with a mallet. That's just the reality of it, right? So if you're not going to bash people, you're going to get other people to bash people.
Yeah.
That's such is life. I also, I have this approach where, there's a lot of people, they abhor violence, and, they think violence is just always wrong. But I don't agree. Because I recognize that without violence, there is no peace. That's just a fact.
It's one of the greatest paradoxes, that preparing for war is how you maintain peace. Because the moment you put a gun down, or if I can reference the Simpsons episode, the moment you no longer have a board with a nail in it, someone else has a board with a nail in it.
Yeah.
And sure, your board is going to be overdone by someone else's who has 2 nails or 2 boards, but it's a lot better than a guy being able to take all of your shit with 1 board with 1 nail in it, because you don't even have that.
Well, and that's where, people that talk about getting rid of weapons of any kind, they're not talking about getting rid of weapons, they're talking about restarting the arms race. Because the arms race will just start back at 0. Right? You start with a board with a nail, and then there's a board with 2 nails, and then there's a baseball bat with a nail in it, and then eventually there's a steel rod, and then the steel rod gives way to, right? And to a sword, and you just go back to the basics. Like, that's actually how evolution works.
Yeah.
Right? In the early days, there started to be defenses, and then those defenses were defeated by better offense, and then better defense came around to deal with that, and so on and so forth. And that's why you have great white sharks, right? Millions and millions of years of that defensive, offensive arms race.
And the really crazy thing about the arms race is that it sort of ended, I guess you could call it, I would just be like, okay, how about we just agree to stop, because this has got a little too hectic. It's like the nuclear bombs.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, that's kind of crazy.
But even then, you know what? I don't actually think it has.
No, I was gonna say they have subsonic now, or
Well,
supersonic,
exactly.
or whatever it is.
Supersonic interballistic missiles are a totally new era, and you start to think about the idea that, I remember a math teacher when I was in high school explained to us the absolutely terrifying reality of U.S. military power, and they said, because this was like right in the height of the war in Afghanistan, and they said, imagine you've got a plane, so a jet, flying in over an enemy area that's been designated to be blown up. And so the plane is coming in at Mach 3, which means it's traveling 3 times the speed of sound. And at this point, it's traveling approximately 1 kilometer per second. So it's going to fly over the target, and it's going to deploy a payload. And by the time that payload lands, the jet will be almost 2 kilometers past the target on the other side.
Right.
Like, the notion of that, when you think, oh yeah, it's terrifying to be standing in a field across from your enemies and knowing you're gonna have to march out there and battle them, but is it any more or less terrifying than the notion that your enemy will be 2,000 meters away by the time you even hear them?
That's always been my argument about things that people are afraid of, is that that is just a replacement of what was already terrifying. Like bots. Bots can create all this misinformation. But people believed that Richard Gere put a gerbil in his butthole.
Well, I'm pretty
20
sure that
years, but 20 years before the internet, right? It was like the mid-90s.
in your butt.
In your butt. And they did it without bots. They did that using old-fashioned humans love to repeat bullshit, even if it's totally not true. In fact, the less true it is, the more likely we are to repeat it.
Well, newspaper and word of mouth,
salacious.
absolutely. Like that's always how that information was disseminated.
Speaking of dissemination, though, ever had a dribble in your butt?
Pretty sure Eminem even made a reference to that in one of his songs.
More than a reference, it's a whole section.
Well, yes.
Yeah, oh no, he's wiggling around in there.
Such a bizarre song.
Back.
Oh my god.
I'm coming.
And I do think that's something that people need to remember is just there's a lot of talk about guns in particular, and you just think, well, yeah, but why do you think that is such a unique facet of society? Like, people don't think about it, but you can go to any gas station and buy as much gasoline as you want. You can go to the hardware store and buy methods for storing and compressing and distributing that gasoline as, a Molotov cocktail or any other type of weapon you want. All of that is totally allowed. You can rent a truck and drive it through, like, the downtown core of a city.
Right.
There was that guy, Daryl Brooks, who drove through a parade and killed 6 people.
Those are weak numbers.
A
whole parade? You didn't even get 2 digits?
Oh, man, yeah. And I forget how many people he wounded, but yeah, certainly,
Well, if the wounded are in double digits, then maybe we're back on track then.
And that's one of those things that people never consider, is that the problem is people wanting to hurt each other, not necessarily their ability to do so. If you take the stance that everyone is generally good, then it makes sense you would actually want people to have the means to defend themselves. But if you take the stance that everybody is generally bad, then you're condemning the few good people to live around a bunch of armed bad people. Right? So no matter how you look at it, it just doesn't make sense, but it makes people feel good.
Well, what no one wants to talk about is how there's children who are allergic to peanut butter. And the peanut butter is unguarded. There's no authority on who takes what peanut butter where. There's literally no way to track a human being and their intentions who has peanut butter.
With their butter.
And the only answer is that we need to ban the peanut butter. We need armed anti-butter guards at every school. Stop me when this analogy is becoming overdone.
Well, what I do want to see, quite frankly, is people start to move away from this idea of every new problem needs a new law.
Yeah.
And go back to every new problem should first be looked at in how can we enforce existing laws. Like, don't tell me that it makes sense to go out and create all these new laws if there's old ones on the books that you aren't using. Like cryptocurrency is a great example. They'll say, oh, we need specific regulations on cryptocurrencies. And it's like, maybe, but you also have a bunch of obvious fraud. And fraud is a crime. It doesn't matter if you do it with an invisible digital currency. It's still fraud, right?
Yeah, well, and also the Federal Reserve, if it wasn't what it is, might be labeled the same thing that people call cryptocurrency.
It is basically fraud and market manipulation.
Because they have an unbelievable control on a country that has no control over them. It's scary.
It is really scary, and I mean, it's the same in other countries. Like the Bank of Canada functions the same way as the Federal Reserve. It's the same way in Germany and in England and France. Like, they all have these central banks. And that's where one of the biggest concerns coming out is like this idea of central bank currencies. Because right now you've got fiat currency, which is, we all know is phony in its value. But as soon as you make it digital, it is 100% fungible. right? Unlike physical cash, which you have to produce and make some sort of promise as to what it's worth. And sure, you can overproduce, as many countries have, but it takes some time. You got to literally turn the printers on,
Right.
and make it happen. Whereas I think you should use a star. Oh, okay,
I forgot that I can just whack projectiles out of the air.
Yeah.
With no cost.
Whack-a-doodle. So yeah, when you consider that idea, I mean, like, just look at China, right? In China, if you piss them off, they just freeze your bank account, and then you can't get a bus.
Yeah, because your Wii U app won't work.
Like, yeah, like that to me is the ultimate in sort of like,
I know it's called WeChat. All right.
Right.
Just wasn't a very good joke.
I did not know what it was called, so
Yeah, it's
I
called
was
WeChat.
gonna let you get away
And
with it.
everything is on there.
Dude, I love how these guys are actually over top of the black bar.
Yeah, everything. Every foreground object is in front of the black bar. I'm supposed to use this thing for
Yeah,
jumping.
you gotta get on top of that bitch.
Yeah, I heard the other day someone say they were afraid about the central currency because the government can turn off your money, and I'm like, they already can do that.
Well, that's what they did with the Freedom Convoy.
And I
in
was just gonna
Canada.
say, with the Canadian truckers fighting valiantly for our freedom.
And this is what terrified the crypto community, because they actually went into the exchanges like
Yes.
Coinbase and
Yeah.
Bittrex and all these things, and they were able to actually freeze Bitcoin wallets, which totally flies in the face of the point of Bitcoin, right?
And it's because the Bitcoin itself isn't the power doesn't come from Bitcoin itself. It comes from the way that it's decentralized.
Well,
And
yeah.
so you need a system of moving that money that isn't controllable, because if you send uncontrollable money through a controllable environment, then they're just going to intercept it there.
And this is the problem. So anyone could have used the sort of traditional method of moving money on the blockchain, and it would have been immune to this problem. But most of us like convenience, right? And so we want to be able to use an exchange, but then all of a sudden you're now bringing in a regulated company, right? So there's no reason they couldn't have sent, and I'm sure that a huge number of the people who had the wallets frozen ended up just saying, well, screw that, I'll send the money again, but I'll send it directly to a private wallet.
Right.
So I'm sure there was a lot of that went on, but just the idea that that's the way they behaved. And I mean, as far as I know, that inquest is still going on, because there has to be like a mandatory audit that goes on after the Emergency Use Act.
Don't worry, brother. Justice always prevails in the end.
Oh yeah, it certainly always prevails. We don't have kangaroo courts at all.
Definitely not a majorly flawed system currently being run by possibly the son of fucking what's his name, Fidel Castro.
Oh my god, yeah, that's one of my absolute favorites.
I love that fucking
Yeah.
theory. It's so silly.
Yeah,
However,
Blackface Castro.
Blackface Castro. I like that.
Yeah.
I do not like Trudeau, but totally disagree with fuck Trudeau. Like, because that
As
is
a
a
notion.
common thing in Canada is stickers that say fuck Trudeau, usually with a middle finger. I don't agree with that, because you're bringing it to a level, like you're calling someone wrong and then you're bringing it to an unprofessional state. It's like that old expression, don't lower yourself to a fool's don't go down to a fool's position, because they will what was it? Oh no, sorry. Don't engage in an argument with a fool, because they'll bring you down to their level and beat you with experience.
Ah, that's actually a brilliant expression.
Yeah.
And you know, I think if that's your sentiment, you should say it with your words. You shouldn't put a flag on the back of your truck or wear a t-shirt.
Yeah, I also don't like how they've turned the Canadian flag into a sign of rebellion, because we've never been a rebellious country.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's bothered me too. Like, that's actually one thing that I find the most alarming is the people who now associate American and Canadian flags with like government distrust. And it's like, shouldn't that indicate to you that the government's screwed up, not that the individuals flying the flags are screwed up?
Right. Well, it's like we've had a Canadian flag flying over our cottage for like 20 years, and now I see it from the shoreline and think, oh well, that's a trucker supporter right there. Like, it's like, even though it has got nothing to do with it, it's just pride from being in a country where You're allowed to say fuck Trudeau out loud.
Yeah.
But
I do think like a big breakdown here is just the fact that I think a lot of people are highly lost. Like they truly are lost in the sense of being given proper guidance on right versus wrong. Like just really basic stuff where, you know, their idea is, well, we need to be compassionate. Okay. Does compassion look like giving a drunk a drink because they're in pain? Because it seems compassionate when you first look at it, because they're in pain. They want a drink. Should you give it to them? No, you should not give them a fucking drink. Like, that's stupid, but if you take compassion to its ultimate end point, that's unfortunately where you will land, right?
It's kind of like giving money to someone on the side of the road.
A little bit.
Because that person needs help. They don't need money or food. They need help to get themselves money and food in the future.
Yeah, well, and I think, you know, you can really see where the danger comes from when it comes to the medical assistance in dying legislation. Because they're about to make it permissible to give medical assistance in dying, and so for those who aren't familiar, that's euthanasia, to people who exclusively have mental illness.
Well, that's rough.
And how can you be mentally competent, right, to consent to that if you have a mental illness?
That's wacky.
Right, so it's very wacky, but it comes at the long tail end of this, you know, overly compassionate approach to the world.
Yeah.
We're just goofy. I just love the idea of like, you know, Canadians are so polite that they're willing to just fuck themselves up in major ways. You know, like, oh, sorry about that. Hey, I didn't realize that you wanted to be put to death. We can arrange for that. Right? Like, oh, okay. I didn't think that was us, but it is. That's what we do.
That's a really interesting thing. I think one of the best ways to describe what's going on in the world right now is that scene from, I think it's the second season of The Boys, when you see that young guy get manipulated by Stormfront talking about terrorism. And then he's lonely and he feels like he's gotta somehow do something, and then he sees like a dark-skinned clerk who looks like he has superpowers, and then he kills him.
I'm trying to remember, because for some reason the second season is actually really hazy to me right now.
Oh yeah, well, Stormfront does this whole thing where she's like, these terrorists are not going to take us down, and we need every man, woman, and child to be part of this. And
I do remember this.
She manipulates social media, so she creates all these memes about how great she is.
Yeah, she's so terrifying.
Yeah, she really is. And to me, that was it was such a great moment, because that that was like, that's America, or the West, I should say.
Currently, yeah.
That is how the West. That's how things happen in the West, where people feel like they have to do it. You know, just export the responsibility, the way that recycling or like plastic companies have just put it on the consumer. Like, it's not our fault that we make something that doesn't biodegrade or we haven't figured out a system. You fuckers need to put it in the right bin. You're the problem.
Even though most of it's not recyclable.
Yeah, and like only 1 or 2 of the 7 types of plastics actually get recycled. The rest of them just get jammed into a plastic-specific depository.
Well, and one thing that that I think is a huge issue, and I think the other half of the issue is assuming what is more or less impact. Right, because the assumption has become that anything that's made out of like natural materials like paper or wood or cotton is better than anything made out of plastic. The problem is, if I use, you know, grocery bags that are plastic, which I don't, we have reusable ones, but if you use those reusable ones, you have to use it about 10,000 times in order to offset the actual energy and carbon cost of a cotton bag. So how many people use their bags 10,000 times? I'm not saying don't get reusable ones, because quite frankly, they work better. They have flat bottoms. They're sturdy, right? So there's reasons to use them, but to force everybody and say that this is for this reason, well, now you're full of shit.
That's why all of our shopping bags are that like flash paper that magicians use. So when we're done, we just set them on fire and they just go whoa. And then we just ignore the fact that we're putting more carcinogens into the air.
I can just imagine you coming home and you put your bags on the floor of the kitchen and then you just get them to burn so that all of your groceries are like accessible.
Yeah, and we call the cats over first because it's more fun to watch their reaction.
You watch them freak out.
Yeah. You're right, and it's like the electric vehicle thing. We've been talking about electric vehicles for decades and how it was going to be the thing that's going to save us, and then no one was like, how are we making the energy and the batteries?
Yeah.
And what are we doing with it later?
Which reminds me, I have a crazy story about a Tesla owner.
And sorry.
Yeah.
And is it worth a cobalt miner's life in the Congo for me to feel good about a fucking car that has that can't even do handles right?
Well,
like Elon, you motherfucker.
Yeah.
Get those fucking handles back out. That was the only part of a car that didn't need to be changed. And you're like, no. Just let's make a car that's only designed for a place like California and then sell them everywhere.
Yeah. Well, then that's definitely a problem. But the question becomes, if it's worth one life, is it worth a dozen, 2 dozen?
Yeah. It's
right?
like, is removing white guilt worth brown lives? I don't think so.
But yeah, if you ask the most liberal among us, they would say absolutely, not in those words. But
yeah, tell me this Tesla story.
yeah, okay. So this guy owns a Tesla, and he bought it 8 years ago. So we're 03 right now, sort of date us. But so he bought it in 2015, which is like
We're 03?
2023. Did I say 03?
Yeah, I'm like...
He bought a Tesla in 1964.
19
Yeah.
The aught means zero.
I know, so the year
19
19,064. I mean, they'll still be making Teslas by then. So he bought a Tesla back in, I think, 2016, probably one of like the original runs. It is now 8 years old, and the battery's no longer accepting a charge. And so it sounds like his daughter was kind of like getting a warning message about the battery and just did nothing about it, which is whatever. That's something. But either way, his battery now doesn't accept a charge whatsoever. So he goes to Tesla and says, hey, battery's not charging. What are the options? Tesla says, okay, well, we'll look into it. And if it's deemed that the battery failure was our fault, we'll pay for the battery and you just have to pay for labor. But if it's deemed that it was definitely, user error, then you're going to have to pay for the battery and the labor. Combined cost, $5,000 for the labor, $10,000 for the new battery. Then he said, okay, fair enough, but let's say, I'm done with the car. Can I sell it back to you guys? And they said, sure. Once you get the car back up to working order, then we'll buy it from you for $13,000. So if he has to repair the whole car, he's looking at a minimum loss of $2,000.
Well, they do say it depreciates as soon as you drive it off the lot.
And yeah, and it depreciates faster than most things. Because the other option, he said, if I want to get it junked, I can't take it to a standard junkyard because they don't accept electric cars. So then you're into going to a battery recycler where they charge you per pound to get rid of the battery.
That's why all my cars are made out of flash paper, so when I'm done with them...
You're so eco-friendly. How can I learn from you?
Honestly, the end of all problems in the world is make everything out of flash material. So it's like, done with the textbook? Woof. Done with your single-use plastics? Woof.
Dude, the pallet you deliver flash paper on? Woof. Done.
Just got a new dog? Woof.
Yeah. Don't want to flash the dog. He can stay.
Like woof, but woof. That was where I was going with that. Oh, that's a shaky platform, like Twitter. I beat you to it.
That was a good one.
I heard you breathing. You were about to say something.
No, I was going to go to a totally different direction. We went to a concert yesterday, an Aaron Goodman concert, and he has this song, because he's away from home all the time, touring and stuff like that. And
I'm away from home, just touring and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's a little better than that, but
okay.
He said even when he comes home, when him and his wife are going to bed, they have a king-size bed, and for some reason they're savages, so they let their dog sleep in the bed.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, so I don't even get to see my wife because the 3 dogs are all like on her side, and then I realized that those dogs are living my best life.
And this is like some stand-up he does like in the middle of the show?
He literally did, yeah, like a short stand-up bit in the middle. It was a really interesting show because he actually did, only half the show was his music, because he did like a musical history of his life. So he started, he said like, yeah, me and my sister got a karaoke machine, one of those ones where you could like turn the audio, like the voice down. So you put a CD in and it would like mute the audio track just for the voice.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And he said, so one of the first songs I would ever sing to was I Just Can't Wait to Be King from like from the movie The Lion King.
Oh, nice.
So he opens the concert more or less by singing that song and then goes through like, this was the first song I played on stage at like a karaoke contest. This is the first song I ever wrote. This is the first song anyone ever bought off me. So it was actually pretty interesting. I think that's you're supposed to get back up. Yeah.
Oops.
She can get extra points.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was a fun show. Nice little intimate venue too. Like not as tight as the Queen's Music Hall, but similar in size.
Yeah, I only have one real place of reference because I've only been to the Queen's. What's it called in Toronto?
Yeah, Queen's Music Hall.
Oh, okay.
Honestly, though, the one thing that's really great about the Queen's is it's a standing-only venue. This one was a seated venue, and I really don't like seated concerts. It's awkward.
Weird, because it kind of seems like the only way I would want to do it.
Really?
It's the chaos is what I don't care for in a concert.
And I do appreciate that. The only thing was there was chaos.
Oh, okay.
Right, people were still going up to the stage, and now they're standing in front of people. So it's just awkward.
Yeah, it's on The Simpsons. Otto's like, sit down, you're ruining it for everybody else. Oh, man, that show used to be satire.
And then it became the thing it satired.
Pretty much.
Yeah. But that's the thing. I mean, Simpsons became highly commercialized.
Yes.
Which is one of the biggest things they took aim at in those early seasons.
Super Eye Patch Wolf, I think is the name of the guy that I saw the video of.
Oh.
He did a great video about the difference in Simpsons episodes. Or it might have been Entertain the Elk. I can't remember. Because Entertain the Elk does the day that something died.
Oh, yeah.
Except it's not clickbait. He's actually pinpointing.
Trying to pinpoint it, yeah.
He's saying, like, this is the point where the show was no longer what it used to be. It isn't just like, let's just shit on something because it's no longer good. It's like, let's go right down to the episode that kind of marks the difference between one thing and another.
I really hope that the day The Simpsons died was the episode the day the laughter died.
Nope. Well, it was I'm pretty sure he said it was the Grimes episode.
Really?
With Grimy. But like, I think he was saying that was the last episode.
That was good.
Well, no, because that one was like, one of the interesting points is that The Simpsons, like many cartoons, has unrealistic elements that they use to teach or to demonstrate a point. So the fact that Homer can't die like a normal human being is usually used in like a funny way. Whereas in that episode, it's purely used as just being like, things just don't happen to Homer.
Yeah, like it's real in the show too. Right. Like, yeah, like it's part of the show's universe that Homer's just invulnerable.
And then they do this, the weirdest thing where it's like, they remind you that, oh yeah, not everybody can just grab onto electrical cables and then Grimy dies.
Right, because they're not Homer Simpson.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good one. I like that. Yeah, so, yeah, I forget where I was going with that. But
well, make your point. Would you just make your point? Yeah, it's not something that I think can ever be avoided entirely. Everything will always have some level of drop-off over time. Mm-hmm. But I do think that you can have direction, and I do think that you can choose to end projects at a good time.
Yeah, well, you're also supposed to end the project before... Like, you're supposed to leave people wanting more, and not go to the point where it's like, oh, are they still making that?
That's not a good sign.
But then again, there's things like The Walking Dead, which a lot of people say is bad.
Can you just hold on before you leave this room? That is the cutest enemy of all time. Like, look at him when he gets to the top of that platform. He is the cutest little monster.
He's nice. I wouldn't say of all time, but...
Oh, they're pretty damn close,
It's up there.
Well, it's anticlimactic. Sorry, I cut you off. What were you saying?
I don't know. What was I saying?
I don't know. What were you saying?
I have so many things to say that I don't think about before I say them, so it's hard to keep track.
It was about something to do with television and things, so we've probably said it before.
Oh, 100%.
I think we've had this Simpsons discussion about 1,500 times.
And we talk about it the same way every single time. That's okay. People don't come to the internet for new things. They come to things that they're comfortable with.
Yeah, well, and at this stage in our career, most people's video will be their first, so it's perfect.
It's like listening to a super mega podcast and being like, can you guys talk about something serious already?
Oh, they're very silly.
They're goofs.
Well, hey,
They're wicked goofballs.
That's more than half the fun for me is just, yeah, I like getting serious from time to time, but just being goofy and not having to make everything, defensible, if you will. You know, like, oh no, this point totally makes sense because of X, Y, or Z. Like, sometimes it just has to be funny. Sometimes it's just you know, like there's some of my favorite jokes are the ones where it's just like, yeah, how do I do that? Oh, yeah, you do that by fuck you.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to have, you know, it doesn't have to have substance.
I work with a guy who likes to say things like, you can tell that it is by the way that it is. As in, like, I'm just not going to explain it.
Is that his way? Is that his version of the proof is in the pudding?
Maybe.
Which has become one of my favorite expressions, by the way.
Well, there's the, I saw a meme one time, and it was like, when the teacher asks you to explain your work, and it's a video of a guy walking up to a tree, and he goes, oh yeah, that's a cedar tree. You can tell by the way that it is. Like, it's a cedar tree, and I know it's a cedar tree because it's a fucking cedar tree.
It's funny, I feel like I now want to interject here because I've been watching that show Big Timber on Netflix. And so now I want to...
The sequel to Big Love.
Well, yeah, I mean, with Big Timber comes Big Love.
Right.
But I just want to be like, yeah, well, you know a cedar tree by the characteristic texture on the inside. And it's actually kind of interesting how the guys can just, like, walk up to a tree, take a tiny little chunk out of it, and instantly they know what type of tree it is.
Well, of course, it's the thing they did.
It's the thing they do.
It's kind of like how I can tell you if a video game is worth its salt in, like, 5 minutes.
And you can tell me whether it's 60 frames per second in about 2 seconds.
Oh yes, I don't even need 90 frames to know how many frames there are. Like in fact, sometimes a game looks like it isn't, or it is. It's very strange.
Is that a motion blur thing, or is it? Yeah.
It's also how it's like the way that the refresh rate works.
And I guess art style too.
The art style, the speed of the camera, the smoothness of the control. Like, there's so many things that make for the smoothness. And sometimes a game doesn't need to be 60 to be smooth. And sometimes a 60 game looks like trash because it has, like, excessive motion blur or the FOV is really low. I also recently found out that I've been too close to my monitor for a long time.
Oh.
And it's probably also not helping.
Affects things, yeah.
Because right now this is a great distance, but I don't play on this.
I did have a question for you about Avatar. They're offering Avatar in the high frame rate version. Do you know anything about that?
No.
Okay, so it was weird. It seemed like the notion was that it was kind of like watching Blu-ray, where you know how sometimes it just feels glassy.
Yep.
So it was the same kind of idea, but basically they're offering it in 3D standard definition and then also in this high frame rate version now. So I thought that was kind of strange.
That's certainly interesting. When I watched Gemini Man?
Gemini Man?
Gemini Man? That's what the Corridor crew calls Gemini Man.
Oh.
Gemini Man. I couldn't get over the fact that they didn't adapt the Gemini Man to the same frame rate as the movie. He's 60 FPS and the rest of the movie's 30.
Okay, sorry, excuse me?
Yeah. So you've seen the movie?
I thought I had.
So I'm just gonna restart. Will
Yeah,
Smith
you gotta
has
get off his shoulders
Will-
before he spikes you in the balls.
Yeah. Get off my shoulder. However, I heard that before.
Yeah. See, he's trying to brush that ninja off his shoulders.
Bro,
Womp womp.
oh, he's Jay-Z.
Yeah, exactly.
He's Jay-Z Rock.
Jay Zurich? Zurich?
No, sometimes my
That's what my mom's calls me.
sometimes my comedy is not being funny. That's the joke, and it's not always clear.
I've
And
noticed.
that's also the joke.
I think it's pretty obvious what you're doing here.
Oh, the blinking chest lets you know. Okay.
Actually, the short crystals tell you that the long crystals are on their way.
I can't move that fast.
Yes, you can. Just do it. See into the future.
I'm gonna bounce. Like how like how?
Cause you know now.
Like
bro.
how? Except for the fact that I did it.
So //// stop. Ah, you stopped too early. You missed out on a slash.
Your Honor, League of Legends, death.
What about League of Legends? Don't talk shit about League of Legends.
League of Legends.
Yeah, it's League of Legends.
Did you know that the internet has turned on League of Legends?
Thank God. But no, why? Now jump.
Just general.
Well, I loved League of Legends. You know that.
I did too. I played it for many years.
We played together for many years. The first episodes that we ever even released of anything were lolling out, weren't they?
Yeah, beyond the videos that we made, we made 4 videos before that, and then we came back to YouTube for Lolin.
Yeah, which was
or
so
Lolin
bad.
Out or whatever it was called.
Oh man. So I really loved those days, but what I found started to happen is that it was more important to League that they constantly be creating new characters that change the dynamic of how the game is played. And then on top of that, the most critical thing for me is they got rid of threes.
This is a constant thing for me because I'm a sensitive gamer, and so it's really important to me how the game is played, and the game mode affects how the game is played dramatically. So I loved a lot of things about Fortnite, but could not stand building. And they didn't make a no build mode until this year.
Wow.
5 years after I played it. So had they put that in there as a day one thing, I might have stuck around longer.
That's something you could do. Yeah. Yeah, and I felt the same way because there was other modes that League of Legends came out with, and some of them were fine. But ultimately, my problem was the same actually problem that I had with World of Warcraft proper was if I'm going to be playing and I'm required to get these other 4 people, or in WoW, 9 people, to all be on board and, pull in the same direction, it just takes such a heavy investment of my time that I can't be a casual.
Yeah.
And so you're now telling me that I either need to be a hardcore player or I need to not play your game.
And it's tough when I don't really know how you do it right, because I don't think that there's very many examples at all of games that have just always increased or stayed the same with their player base. They almost always go up and down. So World of Warcraft, I've heard, is now in a very good era where people are really happy with the expansion.
Well, it's because they already released it. These are good. Everyone knows these are good expansions.
No, I mean new, actually new. Not WoW Classic.
Oh, okay.
Although it is hilarious that they're just re-releasing the games that they already made.
Yeah,
That's
BC and Lich King have come out.
Yeah.
And you know what? Far be it for me to complain, because right now I'm working on a Lich King private server. So I love that era.
Yeah.
But it just is a little funky, the idea that they would resell you something they've already sold you.
Yeah.
You didn't pay for it again, didn't you?
Of course.
Yeah, that's what seems kind of nonsense.
Cash, grass, or ass. Nobody rides for free. That was actually George Carlin
Really?
in a movie by Kevin Smith.
Huh.
Yeah, he's like he's the hitchhiking hobo.
In what? I've never heard of that one.
Jane Silent Bob Strike Back.
Interesting. I love George Carlin, I really do.
I love Kevin Smith.
And this is random, but I love Bill Burr.
I also really liked how he didn't die that one time.
Oh my god. Him telling that story when he's just like, they're like, so do you want to call your wife? And he's like, nah, I'll talk to her after.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Like, I wonder how much, like, how... I'm just surprised he survived going home afterwards.
Yeah. No, wasn't she the one that made him go?
Yeah, but I just meant, like, so she made him go to get checked out, and so they said, like, hey, you've got this, like, widowmaker blockage, we're gonna give you this surgery, like, right now. And they said, hey, your wife's on the phone, do you want to talk to her before the surgery? And he's like, nah, I'll talk to her after.
Oh, I see.
And, you know, I get probably where his head was at, but I can just imagine him getting home and her being like, okay, and now I'm gonna stop your heart for real. You son of a bitch.
Yeah. How dare you make me care about you and then not care about yourself?
Well, that's the tough thing about, like, being in a relationship with a creative is they tend to be fucking nuts.
Yeah, the same thing that makes Kanye able to make incredible music is also the same stuff that makes him say crazy things about Hitler.
Yeah.
Have you heard about that stuff recently?
Definitely heard some stuff about the Jews and about a space laser.
Well, and the
I didn't
best
know...
part is he said all of it wearing, like, a balaclava with no eye holes.
What? Like, his face was covered?
Yeah, he was like that.
Do we even know it was Kanye?
Oh, it's Kanye. Kanye's got that Kanye thing going on.
Oh my god.
Well, because he said it on more than one podcast.
Yeah, because he went on Tim Pool's podcast, and it got, like, real contentious real quick. Which was strange.
Well, of course it does. And one of the best moments was when he went on Lex. Is it Friedman or Friedman?
Friedman.
And he said, "Do you have anyone in your life that?" Sorry, I have to get into Lex Friedman's. Do you have anyone in your life that calls you out on your bullshit?
I fucking love him.
And he's like, what bullshit do I have?
Oh,
and I'm like,
God.
That would be your answer.
Instantly
is
contentious.
No.
Yeah.
I just love how it's like, it's funny when people ignore the question and just go with what they think you're implying. Because he's not, I mean, Lex responded with, well, here is your bullshit. But I would have responded with, no. Do you have anyone in your life that calls you out on your bullshit?
Yeah, I'm not worried about what specific bullshit.
Yeah, I didn't say you have
bullshit.
that. I said, is there someone who calls you out on it? Because you need those people. And it's, friends, family, coworkers, peers.
Like, yeah, life is lonely and confusing without those people.
Well, also, like, I just showed you my New Vegas video. And when I first showed that to my girlfriend, it was garbage, and I was ready to release it. And until I had showed it to someone else, I was like, whoa, the pacing's terrible, the fucking ideas are weird, like I don't even know what's going on here. And then now it's ready to release 5 weeks later. Like, I was already ready to send it out the door. And it was only because it got the context of another person's eyeballs.
There's something to that. It's easy to quantify and justify things in your own mind, but when you have to explain it in an objective way, it changes things.
Yeah. As soon as I start showing it to someone else, it changes what it means to me.
Yeah,
because before, it's just the thing I'm working on. And then it becomes a real thing.
Yeah, but to answer your question, I've not really heard his specific comments on Hitler, but I can just imagine, so I'm kind of cool to leave it at that. Like, I know Kanye's always been crazy, and it's tough because there's this weird aspect of humans where we defer to people that we know and have respect for, despite the fact that we respect them for a different set of skills. We don't respect Kanye for his political or historical understanding. We respect him for his incredible musical genius. But we live in a society where it's very common for people to get their voting advice from their favorite celebrity. And so that's where, you know, he ends up being put in this position where people are like, oh, it's irresponsible for you to say that. And it is. You can't, it's probably, if he's calling out specific people, then it's like defamation. And if not, then it's just straight up crazy. But the idea is like, you should also recognize that Kanye is a crazy person. And he's going to be a crazy person whether he's talking about space lasers or not.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, people, they do most things with their brain, but they seem to vote with their gut.
Yeah.
Instinct, right?
You know what? I actually, like, I see what you're saying, but I almost feel like it's the other way around, where people, they think they're doing it with their brain because they're basing it off like the small amount of facts that they've been told, or, you know, somebody said to vote for them, or the worst is like, oh, that's who my parents are voting for. But I do feel like people should listen to their gut more, because we all know politicians lie, but then people turn around and believe the lies.
Yeah.
Right?
And then some people will say like, you know, I don't care if he's a liar. He's just the best of the options.
Well,
and some people just take themselves out of it completely. They go, I'm just not part of this anymore.
I've been making what I guess I would consider to be like kind of a shitty joke, is I'm really excited that after 3 years, we're going back to the era of good old-fashioned regular corruption, where people just skim off the top and they give preference to certain people that they like, and their road gets fixed first. Like, that's what I want. I would much rather that corruption versus the nonsense we dealt with for the last few years. But it's just such a low bar, right?
I don't know. I think we need more reasons to storm the Capitol.
Oh, God.
It's funny how, like, the reaction to the Canadian the Canadian trucker convoy, was a similar severity, or even probably more severe than January 6th.
In some ways, yeah. I mean, they didn't freeze anyone's bank accounts for January 6th.
There were dudes just letting people into the Capitol. Like, they were just taking gates down and letting people in. Whereas the Canadians didn't even get on the property.
Nor did anyone ever try.
And they were arrested like it was like a terrorist organization.
Well, no, like the main complaint was honking and noise violations, which is kind of funny considering our country's animal is a goose that honks all the time. So I'm just going to say it.
And beavers that are
like... honk?
No, but they're like terribly disruptive.
Oh, they're super loud, yeah. Especially
well, they just...
that tail flap, that...
Well, that too, but they're also knocking trees over and damming things up.
That is a good point. But we like hydroelectric, so that's okay.
Oh.
See, that's why
right.
The Americans and even like Canadians and other parts of the country look at Ontarians really strangely when we say hydro poles. Because they're like, what is that? Is this some sort of fountain? Right? Because to them, hydro means water. Hydro means water. But because we get our power from hydro, that's what we call it.
Poles?
What's that?
I've never heard that before.
You never heard them called hydro poles?
No.
Oh, wow.
You're talking about the poles that have the electricity on them?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
Yeah. Man. I'm actually really surprised by that. You're ruining my point here.
Yeah, it's crazy when the truth gets in the way.
Yeah, forget about the truth. This is not about truth.
Get the fuck out of here with the truth.
This is about me, sir.
Hey, if you're not liking, subscribing, and following me on Twitter, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, actually, except for not on Twitter, because I've decided to take the most giant step back from Twitter for my mental health. I'm
very happy about that, because I remember you telling me, you were in a multi-day argument with a person, and I was like, are you sure they're real?
Yeah, and that's one thing that definitely came across. The only person I'll actually interact with now is this one guy. His name's Darshan. He's an immigrant from India, but he's also he's been a columnist here for years, like a syndicated columnist. And so he's a reasonable human being that I can verify exists. So when he says something, I'm like, this is an interesting point. I'll talk to him. But aside from that, The idea of scrolling Twitter actually gives me a headache. It's like, yeah, people should not communicate that way.
Agreed. I am not on any of them.
Good for you.
YouTube is the closest thing to social media that I'm on.
Yeah, and even then, I feel like I need to stop following certain people.
Yeah.
Like certain people who just, you know, their whole thing is just misery, right? Like a lot of the political commentators. None of it's exciting. It's not the YouTube I remember. I remember Daystorm, and I don't think you can pick that little guy up.
And what for?
Yeah, that was bizarre. What is that even?
I don't know.
Can you slash it through the wall?
I think they're just there.
Yeah, I think
they
they're
might
just
be
there.
linked to another ability.
Huh.
But yes, Daystorm was actually betrayed
By Vine.
by YouTube.
Oh.
And then he went to Vine. Betrayal, obviously, is an exaggeration. I guess not obvious, but it's an exaggeration. He was part of the handful of YouTube pioneers that made YouTube what it is, that brought people to it for consistent, down-to-earth content.
Yeah.
And when the algorithm switched over to minutes watched, it basically tanked his channel. The search and discovery dropped right off the planet. He stopped making money off of it. And then they didn't even have an answer for him. They didn't even tell people they were going to do that. They just fucked like 60% of the audience or of the creators who were making infrequent content, like animators, musicians, people who make things that take a long time, suddenly overnight, seriously overnight. I mean, they probably did it like California times, was probably midday, but like, I don't even know if it's California time. I just made that up.
Probably.
It just sounds like a California-based company. But
So,
yeah,
that's
Suzanne over there.
That was really killer because there was so much value for me. There was so much value in the idea of having 90-second clips, right? Videos that were worth going to watch that weren't these goddamn shorts. Shorts are such garbage. Like, I can't say that as a full-on blanket statement. I realize
it's worse. Yeah, their shorts are so bad and terribly addictive. Like I have been on shorts for hours before.
And that's what I've noticed. And then they're intentionally designed that way.
I'll look at my YouTube history, and it's like you have recently watched 200 videos. And I'm like, oh my god!
I know, and I do wanna call something out right now. It does not count as transformative content to watch someone else's content while your face is in the corner.
Especially the ones that just point.
That's the worst ones, because you're actually acknowledging that you should be doing something. So anytime one of those comes across my screen, I'll instantly hit the not interested in this creator. I don't care if that's the only video they don't do anything in. Don't fucking release it. If you don't have anything to say, don't put other people's shit out there. Sorry. I don't know why I'm like really uppity about that one, but I am.
It bothers me because a lot of YouTube shorts have no point. Like you get through the whole thing and it's like, oh, that was it?
Or they're a lie. It's like, oh, this person's reaction to, and they don't react.
Yeah. Or like, dude gets owned and it has nothing, it like, didn't even happen. Like, got nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, that's very frustrating, and also it brings an aspect of TikTok to the YouTube world, and nobody needs more TikTok in their life.
Well, it's actually a response to TikTok, though.
I'm sure it is. And in the sense of, there is great value for certain creators. It does bring out the ability to put in a 90-second film, or clip rather, and have it get the watch time that you would not otherwise get by posting it directly to your channel. That part's cool. But you have to recognize, as individuals, I'm not talking about YouTube, they made it and it is what it is. But you as an individual have to make sure that that short is worth watching, or else I'm just going to straight up kick you out of my feed.
Right.
Right? And I also feel like users need to be punitive. And I've spoken to a few people about this. If somebody does something that pisses you off, put their channel on the do not watch list. Don't let them get away with it. Don't let YouTube constantly push a creator that you don't like and does things that annoys you. Mm-hmm. They get paid for that shit.
Yep.
Right? Whether it seems like that, that is absolutely the case. So you gotta take them to task. People won't learn otherwise. Not that I honestly think people will learn.
Whippy lady with a whippy
Yeah,
hair.
she's a bitch. She's a total bitch.
She's total fourth wave.
So you can oh yeah, you can tell she's a fourth waver. Can you like hook those hooks?
Ah, gotcha, bitch.
Whoa, and the bitch got you back.
I'm Dave Chappelle, bitch.
Man.
I'm Rick James, bitch.
I do love that though. That gotcha bitch is probably one of the
Gotcha.
greatest snippets of all time.
I should say, though, my success on YouTube has actually only come about with YouTube Shorts. So it's kind of a weird one for me, where I go, like, that's kind of bullshit, kind of stupid, but it's also the only reason why my channel has had enough minutes watched for YouTube to start promoting me to anyone, because I wasn't even showing up on home pages, ever.
And regardless, as much as I see where you're coming from, your shorts are clippings of things you genuinely made yourself.
Oh,
Right?
totally.
And they're not like, and I've seen a number of your clips. They're not curated content, but you've only put them in where there's purpose. You haven't just snipped any 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Right? And that's my problem. Someone would just take like 10 seconds and then 10 seconds after that and then 10 seconds after that. Just post all that shit in the hopes that someone will be led from one to the next.
Yep.
It's tough. People just don't want to do the work anymore.
Quit it with your whippy tail.
Ah.
I don't like the anymore. I don't like it when we talk about like how the past was good and the present is bad and I fear for the future, because we've never stopped doing that. We always believe that shit used to be better. People used to be better, harder working people who were more reasonable, who were more interested in the truth and all that shit. And I don't know if it's true.
Right, but once upon a time, people starved if they didn't work. That has changed.
Yes.
Right, and not only that, once upon a time, people's parents kicked them the fuck out if they didn't work.
But it's
and that has also changed.
So true that some people in the past lived better than anyone now, respectively, like relatively.
In terms of like, freedom and life and family and whatever.
I mean, the way that a royal lived in the 1100s relative to what people had as poor people, like what a rich person was in the 11th century could be better than the richest person now, relatively.
See, I don't even think that's true. I think in a lot of ways, the average middle-class North American person lives better than royalty of old. Because they have access to far more in terms of hygiene.
No, I'm talking relatively, though.
Oh, relative to their
like
time?
what it meant for them.
Oh, there was certainly a lot. Yeah, I would say the wealthiest people. You know what? It depends if you count the Saudis. Because the Saudis,
yeah,
money in that part of the world.
It's crazy that we haven't talked about it for like most people aren't talking about it, and it's one of those like, if you want the sugar, you can't talk shit about the sugar daddy.
Right? Yeah.
Right. It's like, the Elon Musk is the richest person in the world who is honest about how much money he has.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. Who has to actually get taxed on it.
Because like there's apparently like a guy sued, I think it was Forbes, like a Saudi, because they didn't say he was the richest person in the world. But I don't think
what court would you even adjudicate that in?
Yeah, I guess you just like meet in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, so that he can blow you out of the water. Fuck that.
Yeah, I totally forgot that I can do this too. How I can endlessly like backflip, where I can just be like, this guy would just quit. Can you stop?
Quit it! Quit it! These pretzels are making me thirsty.
What? This thing. Right,
oh my god! Oh my god!
Just like endlessly. It's like, where is the man?
Arms up, parachute pants.
Yeah. Grapple. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, back to not the game. Here's top 10 ways to know you're a Saudi. Number 1.
You own a supercar. Number 2, you have buried people in the desert.
I mean, you don't have to be a Saudi to do that.
Number 3,
everywhere.
your house is on a palm island that smells like bog.
Your house looks like it shouldn't stand.
Yeah. That's been it. Or it's made out of sandstone.
I personally have a plan in the house, in our first house. Who puts a bunch of spikes there?
Couple of spikes.
In our first house, I would like to build something at the front door that looks like it shouldn't exist.
What?
Kind of like that unit out there that doesn't have a... actually, there's 2 units out there that don't have legs on the back of them.
Oh, even though it looks like they should.
Because they've been secured to the wall.
Right.
So they don't need the same amount of support.
So you want something that looks like impossible.
Yeah, I want you to walk in and go, whoa! And because I want it to be a reminder to me and my family that everywhere you go, you trust the person who built that place and designed it.
Fuck yeah.
It's true. We forget about it. You tell someone, like, would you put your life in a complete stranger's hands? No, of course I wouldn't. But you drive along streets where people are on head-on collision traffic. You go into buildings that other people built that you've never met. Like, you put your life in strangers' arms all the time.
Yeah, well, I think about that all the time, obviously, because it's the work that I do.
Because you're the guy that we put the...
Yeah, so it's tough for me. I'm just like, we're going over a bridge, and I'm thinking, this bridge.
It's why when I'm done my work, I stress test the fuck out of it, because I know that in the next 10 to 15 years, there's going to be at least one person who forgets that it's, built by a person.
Yeah.
Not
tries to reef on it.
Not a thing that nobody anyway.
But that reminds me, I got one last thing to talk about here. I watched a movie the other day, and I don't know if you've seen it, but you've certainly told me about it. Season of the Witch.
Yeah.
Have you seen it? Like the whole thing?
It's Vin Diesel.
No. That's The Last Witch Hunter, which is awesome.
Oh,
Season
Ron
of the Witch.
Perlman.
Yes. Nicolas Cage.
And Nick Cage.
It is so amazingly bad. It was a blast, dude. Like, just the funkiness of the thing, and like the way, like the dialogue was just so, Okay, have you seen it all the way through?
No.
Okay.
No,
So-
I think I got like 10 minutes in and I was like, this is something.
So the opening scene, they go through like 7 or 8 different battles, but it took us until halfway through the scene to even realize these were different battles. I just couldn't figure out why the setting kept changing.
Oh.
So then they're like, okay, like now, because of this last battle where we had to kill the innocents, like we're gonna leave the church. So they leave the church, and then the church is like, hey, you guys have to come back to the church because we captured you. And they're like, shit, we gotta come back to the church. And the church is like, hey, so we got this witch bitch that we've got to transport to this monastery, so you're gonna have to transport her. And they're like, we don't want to transport her. And he's like, well, then you go to jail. And they're like, well, but this witch looks innocent, so we're gonna transport her, but you're gonna give her a trial. And anyways, they go to take this witch on this journey, and so the witch is like killing people along the way, like one at a time, kind of picking them off. They have to go over this bridge, and it is the silliest rickety bridge scene of all time. It's like, imagine that scene from The Walking Dead where they have to get the carriage across the glass floor, but way better. And then they finally get to the end, and like, I guess spoilers in case anyone's gonna watch it, but they finally get the witch all the way to where they're going, and the witch turns out not to be a witch. She's actually a demon.
Oh, good.
So that's why she has magical powers, because she's a demon. And the demon needed them to take it to the monastery, even though when they get to the monastery, the demon's magic has already killed all the monks. So then the demon wants the book to, like, I guess enslave the world, and then they use the book to slay the demon. And the witch, and the like body that the demon had inhabited, that chick, gets with one of the dudes that got her there.
Of course.
And they live happily ever after. And the guy that she ends up with plays number 4 in Umbrella Academy.
Robert Sheenan?
I guess so. I don't know his fucking name.
Which one's number 4?
He's the I See Dead People.
Oh yeah, Robert Sheen.
Klaus.
Yeah, he was also in. He was like the only reason to watch Misfits.
Yes.
And then he left. I was like, well,
he's also
it was
the
a
only
good run.
reason to watch this movie. So, dude, if you're looking, you know, like I don't know if you ever have those days where you want to watch a movie that's, you know, like The Room, like just
No.
like it's not as bad as The Room.
I
Truly.
don't.
Okay.
I only want to
You
watch
have better
good-
things to do with your time.
Yeah, well, I'm also just kind of bored with a lot of content recently, so I've been mostly making my own stuff, which is really good for me.
Good for you.
I always said that that the only way for me to really make content at a reasonable pace is for me to stop enjoying playing and start enjoying making. And it's been that way recently, where like I've got the best games in the world in my at my disposal. There's basically nothing that I don't. How do I say that? My double negative.
You're not missing any games.
My double negative problem is making it hard for me to form a sentence. There's no game that I want that I don't have. So, and like yeah, I mean obviously like there's new things, but I'm not really that excited about them, and I also don't feel like most games deserve full price.
Right.
I know that's harsh to say, and I want to support the industry, but also like maybe support your own ideology by making it worth the price.
Yeah.
Like $90 for a game that isn't even finished is a giant pile of horseshit. And the problem is the developer is associated with the producing company or the publishing company who's interested in the money and as a product. But the developer is interested in the product as a piece of art and as a thing that lasts beyond them. And so you got these weird things like it was a shock that the Last of Us PC port didn't come out in conjunction with the TV show, because they wanted to do that so that they could release both at the same time. But they chose to delay it so that it was ready, which is a rare moment. Most of the time they just do it anyway, because it's you gotta get that deadline.
Yeah.
And I forgot how I even got here, but yeah, basically I've been only into the stuff that's really worth it, because I don't want to spend any of my time watching things that aren't good. Even if they're so good, they're or so bad they're good. But part of it is also because it needs to service the show. So like if it's not going to become a show, it's hard for me to want to get into.
Is it really worth your time? Yeah.
So like recently we watched Leon the Professional, which is one of my favorite movies. And it's really good because it doesn't do all of the things that would make it a marketable film.
Yeah.
Like it's got Natalie Portman before she was famous. It's got I don't know the name of the French actor who's been in like 2 English movies.
Bless you.
And they in no way set it up for a sequel. Like it would be harder to make that movie because they'd be like, well, we'd really prefer if you left it open-ended.
I bet.
And the whole point of the movie is the direction that it goes. I don't know if I should say what happens because I kind of want you to watch it.
Yeah, Leon the Professional. I don't think I've seen it.
Should I leave it?
Yeah, leave it.
Okay. But there is a point to the ending, and it's that the cycle will not continue. That's essentially the
The
point.
cycle will not continue.
Right.
That's rare.
And a lot of movies will do it where it's like the old character teaches the new character, and then the new character becomes the old character, and then it starts like the whole cycle starts again.
Right.
But the whole point of this movie is that the cycle should not continue. And so it's a beautiful ending to the film.
Where do you watch that?
I fell asleep and forgot how the movie ended, and I was woken up by my girlfriend saying, "Why do you always make me watch movies with sad stuff in it?" And I'm like, I don't know, it's real.
Well, that's the problem. Is there's not a lot of like feel good stuff that also, has that reality to it.
Oh, speaking of that, Rookie Blue got recommended to us.
Yeah.
And so we started watching it, and I think it's the 3rd or 4th episode.
It's garbage.
Well, don't ruin the ending. Like I just did with Leon the Professional. Two rookies, specifically, both of them are rookies, go on a mission that they were told not to pursue, and then they unnecessarily risk the life of a civilian in order to get an in with the people they're investigating. Keep in mind, they are investigating with, they've entered a compound of bad guys with no warrant or even probable cause. And then they unnecessarily endanger a woman to do it, and then almost get themselves killed. And they somehow, take out the bad guys and then call in the police. And I'm like, okay, like they're gonna resolve this by having the two rookies resolve the issue without ever telling the police department, because you couldn't possibly survive that. Like, you couldn't make it as a rookie pulling that many moves. There's no way you're gonna get away with that, right?
Yeah.
No, they call the fucking they call the police, the department. They are congratulated for taking down a bad organization, and they are not even slapped on the wrist. It's basically just a short, stern talking to.
God.
And I'm like, that's a giant load of shit. The whole point of this show is that it's about, like, you're trying to present this as an actual police story.
Yeah, and that's just nonsense.
And then the next episode, an attack dog grabs the one guy by the shirt. Not his arm, by his shirt.
Okay.
And then the man with a very calm expression goes, "You go and get the other guy, I got this." He's being attacked by an attack dog, like a Rottweiler.
And he's just calm.
And it's not even grabbing his arm. It's got just the shirt, and it's barely doing a thing to him. And he's so calm that he's like, "I'm good. Go, you go ahead." And I'm like, okay, we're done with this.
Yeah, I watched half an episode and then decided to give it up, and I'm glad I did.
Well, I think I enjoyed the first couple episodes because I kept falling asleep.
Nice.
So I was waking up and I was like, that was all right.
So half episodes is the way to go.
Yeah.
Oh my
It's
God.
a great show to fall asleep to because you won't notice that there was no attempt.
Right.
Just no attempt.
Oh my God. All right. Well, let's wrap this one up with a bow. You have any good movies to recommend other than Leon the Professional?
Oh. I would have to look at my movies because I can't even
That's
think.
not helpful. I need it now.
Oh. Let me see here. Give me a letter.
Z.
Well, that would be what is it called? There was a show from when we were kids from Disney Channel called Xenon.
Zaboomafoo?
Xenon the sequel.
What?
Yeah, the sequel to Xenon, Earth Girl or something like that. Space Girl and Earth. I forget what it's called. But the sequel was called Xenon the sequel.
Okay, I'll check it out.
I don't think you should check it out. But instead, check out Nakey Jakey's video about Disney.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
All right, well, thanks for joining us. If you watched the whole thing,
kudos.
The fuck is going on in your life that you have an hour and 45? Jeez.
Yeah, you really should do better.
But if you're at work while you're listening to this, just remember, don't let the bastards grind you down. Anyway, we'll see you later.